No breakthroughs, no blow-ups. Carney survives Trump. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Going beyond the headlines.
Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
It was the most important meeting of Mark Carney's new political career. A little more than a week after winning the election, the Prime Minister was in the Lion's Den for his first face-to-face meeting with the President of the United States, Donald Trump. And it didn't take long for journalists to ask about the elephant in the room. Trump's talk about wanting to make Canada the 51st state. Trump's answer may have surprised some people.
No. Well, I still believe that, but you know, it takes two to tango, right? But no, I do. I mean, I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things. There would be a lot of advantages, but it would be a massive tax cut. And it's also a beautiful, you know, as a real estate developer, you know, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said that's the way it was meant to be. But you know, I do feel it's much better for Canada.
When it was time for Carney to tackle that question, he had an answer ready.
As you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, you know, Buckingham Palace, that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. And we have done that in the past. And part of that, as the President just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government is committed for a step change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership. And I'll say this as well, that the President has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us playing our full weight in NATO, and that will be part of it.
Near the end of the public portion of what was billed as a bilateral meeting, but rather morphed into Trump holding court with the news media, while the Prime Minister did a lot of looking on, Donald Trump was asked about the tariffs on Canada.
To clarify, Mr. President, is there anything the Prime Minister can say to you today to change your mind on tariffing Canada?
Tariffing cars?
Tariffing Canada. Is there anything he could say to you in the course of your meetings with him today that would get you to lift tariffs on Canada?
No.
Why not?
Just the way it is.
Just the way it is. After the meetings were over, the Prime Minister headed to the Canadian Embassy in Washington, where he had a debrief with the news media. Carney said this meeting with Trump was just the start.
In a negotiation, you don't get like little elements of it. You get an end to a negotiation. We're having a very complex negotiation about a wide range of issues. And it's, as I said before I came here, I wouldn't have expected white smoke coming out of this meeting. That was not my expectation, that because of the nature of the negotiation. So you don't expect to have specific progress as things move along, even when you're making progress, because it's that's why it's a global negotiation.
Later in the day, President Trump spoke about how things went with Prime Minister Carney. He called Prime Minister Carney a big step up.
As far as calling him Governor Carney, no, I haven't done that yet, and maybe I won't. I did have a lot of fun with Trudeau, but I think this is a big step up. It's a good step up for Canada. I watched very closely. I thought he did really terrifically in the debates. I like him. You know, he's a nice man. We get along very well. We had a great meeting today. Really good. I think the relationship's going to be very strong.
Next time these two leaders will be at the G7 summit that is being held in Kananaskis, Alberta, next month. They're getting ready there. That's between June 15th and June 17th.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
It's not just an Alberta thing. Lots of people are sharing their thoughts on the idea of Alberta holding a sovereignty referendum, maybe within the next year or so. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has said in recent days she's not in favor of Alberta leaving Canada. But nevertheless, she is lowering the threshold for a citizen-led initiative, essentially making it easier for a referendum to be held. Speaking with news reporters in Edmonton, Premier Smith suggested yesterday the reason she is softening the requirements for any citizen-led referendum is to get clarity on where people stand on various issues, not just separation.
If you genuinely want citizens to be able to identify issues they care about, be able to put it forward to the people, you have to have a reasonable signature threshold. Our threshold is a little bit lower than Saskatchewan's, but a little bit higher than what we see in the United States. It's consistent with what we've had for many decades in the Municipal Government Act. So it shouldn't be that surprising that we're just trying to get some clarity so that people know what the process is if they want to take forward issues that they think matter to Albertans.
One premier who is not impressed with Danielle Smith and all of this talk about Alberta's separation is the Ontario Premier, Doug Ford. He didn't mention Smith by name during a speech yesterday, but he called it a distraction from what he says is the bigger issue, Trump and tariffs.
You know, we always believe in something called the AMCAN Fortress, the American-Canadian Fortress. We put a ring around it. We'd be unstoppable anywhere in the entire world. We'd be the wealthiest, richest two nations in the world and the safest two nations. And, you know, all he's trying to do, and we wish him, I forget about political stripes, by the way. We have a prime minister down there, and he's going to be sitting down, and he's going to give it everything he can. This is a time to unite the country. Not people saying, oh, I'm leaving the country, or I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You know, united we stand, divided we fall. And we have to be united Canada together to fight President Trump's tariff.
When Premier Smith was asked about what Doug Ford said, she essentially suggested Doug Ford mind his own business.
Well, Doug and I have a great friendship. We don't agree on everything. In fact, I think we supported different people in the last federal election. And so we don't have to agree on everything. But what I will say is we have a constructive conversation at the coffee table. I continue to look forward to having a constructive conversation with him at the coffee table. But he's the Premier of Ontario. I'm the Premier of Alberta. We just have different issues that we have to respond to in our respective jurisdictions.
Do you think he should stick in his own lane? Or, you know, what do you say to as any kind of a retort?
Well, I don't tell him how he should run his province, and I would hope that he doesn't tell me how I should run mine. But we have a very respectful relationship, and I hope that continues.
The issue of a referendum in Alberta also came up during Prime Minister Carney's news conference yesterday in Washington after Carney's meeting with Donald Trump.
Canada is stronger when we work together. As an Albertan, I firmly believe that. You can always ask a question, but I know what I would respond clearly.
The bill that would lower the threshold for holding a referendum in Alberta is Alberta's Bill 54. And First Nations leaders in Alberta don't think much of it. Chief Billy Joe Tuckero of the Mixu Cree First Nation held a news conference yesterday, along with a number of other chiefs from Treaties 6, 7, and 8. And he threw a paper copy of the bill on the floor in disgust.
We thank you for bringing us together as treaty people to stand and oppose this. Yesterday, you made 4 demands to the Prime Minister of Canada. That was a no-no because you gave him a time limit till the 2026 to get their things in order. But you will not do what you want without the approval of the treaty people. You talk about a reset with Canada, you must reset with the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island. Bill 54, this is what we think of you. You're garbage like that. This is treaty land, and we stand on it today. Thank you.
Earlier this week, Premier Smith said any referendum on Alberta's future must respect the constitutional rights and treaties of Indigenous people. She called that non-negotiable. She has one cheerleader in Eastern Canada, and that is the leader of the Quebec Separatists, the Parti Québécois leader, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon. He applauded Danielle Smith, saying she's standing up for her province. Polls suggest the PQ could form the next government in Quebec. If it does form government in that province when the election is held next fall, the Parti Québécois is promising a third referendum on Quebec's sovereignty, and that would be held sometime before the year 2030.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Here the midweek edition of Now You Know with Rob Snow, and if you're ever looking for a podcast of our show, there's a great new mobile app that will help you hear it when you want to. You can listen live, listen to the podcast. It's called the Seeker app, spelled Seekr, and it has all kinds of exclusive audio that you won't hear anywhere else, news, music, and sports. And you can download Seeker for iOS or Android. That's Seeker, spelled Seekr. And Now You Know with Rob Snow is on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Here with David Smith on a Wednesday, and the conclave is underway.
Yeah, it is.
David,
Yeah.
at the Vatican. So everybody, the world over, will be on the lookout for the white smoke from the chimney, signaling a new leader of the Roman Catholic Church. I was reading this morning, there are 4,000 accredited journalists.
Holy.
More than the Olympics. That's more journalists than were covering the Olympics are covering the conclave. Isn't that something?
I don't know if that says more about the conclave or more about the Olympics. How many people are interested in the Olympics these days?
And I mean, you can bet on everything these days.
Oh, you can, yes.
Yeah, like, bet on politics, and you can bet on the conclave. You can bet on, who will be the next pope, and there are odds on all the contenders. The leading contender, the candidate with the best odds right now is Cardinal Pietro Parolin, I will say. Italian. Hasn't been an Italian pope since the death of John Paul I in 1978. But Italians occupied the papacy had a good run, Dave. They popes were Italian for 455 years up until that point.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay. Sure.
Okay. As for how long people think this conclave is going to last, the betting favorite right now is 1 or 2 ballots. 1 or 2 ballots, 3 or 4 ballots, followed by 5 or 6 ballots. So most people think this is going to take maybe 5 days. Maybe 5 days. The last 12 popes since 1846 were voted on within 2 to 5 days. But multiple rounds of voting per day, so hard to nail down how many ballots to expect. Pope Francis, the late Pope Francis, was elected after 5 rounds of voting, and that took 2 days. Some of these things have been epic. If you're reading about the history of the conclaves, I think I read one took 2 years.
2 years?
2 years. Can you imagine?
Wow.
Cloistered away in the Vatican for 2 years trying to choose a new pope. But yes, it'll probably be over in a few days, if history is any guide. So that's one thing that is on the news agenda for today. The conclave underway, and lots of people are streaming Conclave on their streaming services. The movie.
Oh, yes, the movie. Yes. I want to see Conclave. That. I've heard it's good.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's like Conclave 101, Picking Popes 101. In the NHL playoffs.
Yes.
It's Toronto and Florida, which is shaping up to be a real war between the Leafs and the Panthers. Game 2 goes tonight on Sportsnet with the Leafs winning the first game, so they lead that best of 7 second round series 1-0. And we have learned now that Toronto has lost their starting goaltender.
Yeah.
Stolars is out. So they'll go with the backup. Wall will be in goal tonight for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I wonder how nasty that game is going to be. Edmonton opened up the second round yesterday with a win against Las Vegas. 4-2, so they're up 1-0 in that series. And the later game tonight is Dallas and the Winnipeg Jets. Both had remarkable come from behind game 7 wins to move on to the second round. The reason I am at work today, by the way, is because I did not win the Lotto Max jackpot, David, that I was telling you about earlier in the week. I would have taken care of you had I won. I
know.
Never would have worried about anything. But no winner last night for the big $75 million jackpot in the Lotto Max. The next draw will be Saturday. And right now, the lottery officials are saying the jackpot will hit $80 million. $80 million. And there will be 14 $1 million prizes for the Lotto Max jackpot on the weekend. And the gold ball jackpot for the Lotto 649 is creeping up there as well. That's tonight's draw. And that's, you'd have to make do with 60 million. David, I'm sure you could make it stretch. Yeah. You could.
Look, I'm a simple guy. I don't need very much. 60 million would be fine for me, I think.
It's fine. Yeah. That's good. Okay, Newsday panel is just ahead. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
The Newsday panel.
Yes, it is time for our Newsday panel. Cam Holmstrom is back with us, principal at Nipaway Strategies. How are you, Cam?
Pretty good, Rob. Always glad to be here.
Yeah, great to hear from you today, along with Nick McRoberts from Hill and Knowlton. How are you today, Nick?
I'm doing good, Rob. How are you?
That's good. So we have Northwestern Ontario covered off today and Prince Edward Island covered off today. So that's a pretty good mix, I think. And one New Democrat and one Liberal. I guess I'll have to play the right winger. Okay, that'll be a stretch for me.
I know it's hurting you, Rob. I know it's really hurting you.
All right, so let's listen to a little bit of this exchange. Donald Trump is asked about the 51st state. Mark Carney is in the Oval Office sitting right next to him, and Carney gets a chance to answer. Let's roll the Trump stuff first. Go ahead.
No. Well, I still believe that, but takes two to tango, right? But no, I do. I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things. There would be a lot of advantages. But it would be a massive tax cut. And it's also a beautiful, as a real estate developer, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person. But when I looked at that beauty, I said, that's the way it was meant to be. But, I do feel it's much better for Canada.
So Mark Carney had to know that was going to come up, and he had to have an answer ready. He had to say something, and this is what he said.
As you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. And we have done that in the past. And part of that, as the president just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government,
I think that's good. You get the idea. Takes two to tango. That's new. Some places are not for sale. That's true, Trump said. So all in all, how do you think Mark Carney performed during his meeting with Donald Trump, Nick?
I think it exceeded expectations. I think, what's clear from those clips to me, Rob, is that he's very clearly been briefed on how to interact with Donald Trump in a very friendly way. He spoke about real estate and he spoke about Buckingham Palace. Those are two things that have been reported that the president really likes, is the royal family, the Queen, and real estate. And so Carney's trying to build that rapport to him. Or with him, and while at the same time being able to fact check him and say that we'll never be the 51st state and Canada is not for sale, but stressing that partnership as well, and he did it again later in that pool spray when he talked about Canadian cars being 50% American. I think that's going to be a line that goes through Carney's messaging moving forward, is this idea of integrated supply chains, and he did an effective job of messaging that.
What did you think? How did the Prime Minister do yesterday, Cam, in your opinion?
Honestly, I think he did pretty well. Obviously, the bar was low given who we're dealing with and what we're dealing with. But I think what I took away from it and what I liked about it was that he managed to push back on Trump, state facts, without being antagonistic at the same time, right? And to me, this is where his background works well. Like, yes, I agree with Nick. He was likely briefed very well, but also, too, this is the kind of person that Mr. Carney's been dealing with his whole professional life. Like, this is where his professional background as the central banker and the guy in finance really works in his favor, right? He's known people like Donald Trump his whole life who he's had to deal with, who he's had to work with in good and bad situations. So he knew how to kind of walk, if we're going to borrow dance metaphors, he knew how to do that waltz, right?
Okay.
He's got that box step down. So to me, it's like, okay, that served him well. What I also like, too, though, was that he did not hesitate to push back on stuff. Like, even when Mr. Trump came back later and said, well, never say never, like you saw right there on the screen, Mr. Carney sitting back right beside him, mouthing never 5 times in a row, pretty insistently, right? So again, it was like, look, I'm going to give you respect, but I'm going to do this in a way where you're going to have to respect me in my position. That can't help but be good in the end. But honestly, we'll see where this goes, because the problem with Trump always is he is mercurial. Who knows who gets in his ear next and pumps him up on something else or something else about Carney or us or whatever. But you know what? We wanted an adult in the room. That's what we got yesterday. That's a good thing.
Is it a knock against him that he seemed to kind of flatter Trump at times? Called him you are a transformational president. You've done great things on you've reset things on security, things like that. No.
Well, Rob, to be fair, that is honest. It may not be.
Okay.
It may not be in a complimentary way.
Okay. Well, he said a transformational president with your relentless focus on the American worker and the American economy is. But you
get my point, right? That
right. I
he's
sure
not
do.
lying
Yes.
when he says it. And hey, if it works, it works.
Nick, go ahead, Nick.
No, I mean, agreed. Like there has to be a little bit of this. I wouldn't go so far as to say flattery, but you have to work with the guy. You can't just go in and put your fists up and say we're going to fight you and you're a tyrant and X, Y, and Z. So yeah, to Cam's point, calling him a transformational president is true.
Yes.
But we can have a debate on the merit of that.
Okay. In the end, nothing really changed. A critic would say, well, what did he get? He got nothing. We're still tariffed. There's no progress there, right?
But Rob, that was the expectation coming out of this, though.
Okay.
This was never going to be that big thing or a big deal happen and a lot of stuff moved. Like, that just wasn't what it was going to be. And I think that expectation was set pretty clearly. And to be honest, let's just be real. If he had come out of there with some kind of big change, do we even trust it knowing who we're dealing with? I think that's the thing with dealing with Trump is where he's changed the expectations. That even if we came out with a brand new deal today, are we really trusting that he's going to keep his word? Because he has a real propensity of not keeping his word.
Yeah, okay. All right, we'll be right back. It's our Newsday panel with Nick McRoberts from Hill and Knowlton and Cam Holmstrom from Neepaway Strategies. While Mr. Carney was in Washington meeting U.S. President Donald Trump, conservative office holders gathered in Ottawa to talk about what went wrong with the election campaign and who will lead them going forward. Just ahead of the meeting, this was Pierre Poilievre.
The map has changed dramatically. Like, if you had told me that, for one, that we would get 41% of the vote a couple of years ago, I would have said, wow, that's ambitious. But if you told me that we would get 41% of the vote and still not win, I would have said, you're crazy. But in fact, our electoral map has changed. It's at this point, right now, it could change again, but right now it's looking more and more like a two-party map, where getting 41%, by the way, the best result that we've had since 1988, is not enough. Was not enough to form government. So we have to ask ourselves, how do we first of all keep the enormous number of the 8 million people who voted for us? That was just almost 2.5 million more than the previous time. But then add another roughly 1 million votes that will allow us to get over the finish line. And that's something we're going to be talking with. We have to spend a lot of the summer listening carefully to people in the communities, coffee shops and town halls and other events. We can find out who are the people that are most likely to join this growing movement and get us over the finish line.
Okay, so it looks as though he's not going anywhere for now as leader of the Conservative Party. We also know Andrew Scheer, the former leader of the Conservative Party, who's been the House leader, the opposition House leader for the party in the House, will be the interim leader in the House. But I would like to know, what do you think about what you're hearing from Conservatives after their election loss? Well, we have to learn, we have to grow, these sorts of things. Nick, what do you think? What you're hearing here?
Well, I mean, look, a loss is a loss, however you want to paint it. I think that the Conservatives, and I would expect this of any party, are trying to find the positives out of what was an absolutely, dropping of the ball by the Conservatives. I think the Liberals obviously did a great job to get an election win, but look, 6 months ago, the Conservatives were up, 40 points to 20, or the Liberals, or whatever the polls were. It was a huge, huge turnaround.
Right.
Someone's got to wear that. And what I'm not hearing is who owns that, right? Who owns that loss? It's clearly not Polyev from the way they're speaking. So,
right.
If I was a part of the Conservatives, and conservatives that I've spoken to, the conversations are, we still don't know who's responsible for this. Someone has to, someone has to sit with this, in the same way that the Conservatives booted out Andrew Scheer during an election loss, and booted out Aaron O'Toole during an election loss, and Stephen Harper stepped down after an election loss. Like, someone's got to own this. That's what I'm missing from Conservatives.
Someone's got to own it. Ownership. Okay, interesting. Cam, what do you think?
Well, first off, I'm hearing a lot of, we have lessons that to learn, but you know what, I'm looking more at the actions they take than the words, right? Because you can tell me all day long you've learned the lesson. Your actions will tell me if you actually have. And it seems as Mr. Poilievre's going to try to stick around. Let's just be honest. A lot of the ownership does rest with him, and you've seen it from some former Conservative candidates who talked about how it was the leader, his words, his approach that turned some people off, right? He has to own some of that. But to me, the strangest about the election we just had, I think this really cuts across for all parties. The parties can only take a limited amount of credit or a limited amount of blame for what happened, because so much of it was circumstantial based on what happened with Trump, right? Like, let's just be honest. Yeah, the Conservatives blew a 25-point lead, but the Conservatives blew a 25-point lead because the situation around them changed and they didn't pivot. And even if they had pivoted, there was no guarantee that was going to work. Like, a lot of what happened was beyond their control. Honestly, same thing with the Liberals. The Liberals soared not because of some grand desire to have a Liberal government. It was because Mr. Carney was the right person for the right moment. And that's the same reason why the NDP number cratered. It wasn't some great antipathy towards the New Democrats and dental care and things like that. It was, no, we need the right person to deal with this. So to me, I think that piece of it actually insulates a bit of a learning that could happen here or change. And honestly, I don't think that's going to help the parties. It could become a crutch. But to me, yeah, the Conservatives do have an underlying problem, and it's kind of laid out. Is that, look, you got 41% of the vote and you still lost. And you lost by a good 2, almost 3%.
Right.
So how do you make up that difference?
Okay.
And the problem is their coalition is made up of a lot of former PPC voters who are a little bit out there. How do you keep those people in the tent while bringing more moderate people in? Like, that's been the Conservative issue since the dawn of time, as I can remember it. And you know what? Yeah, it's going to be that much harder to do now that you're running out of runway to bring those people across.
Okay. When we come back, let's talk about politicians appearing on podcasts. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. You can listen to the podcast on the Seeker app or wherever you get your podcasts. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
It's our Newsday panel. Cam Holmstrom, Principal, Nibaway Strategies. Nick McRoberts from Hill and Knowlton. Okay, Joe Rogan says that he invited Pierre Poilievre onto his podcast, very popular podcast. Some charts say the most popular podcast in the world. And that his people said no. Let's listen to this here.
Kind of reminds me of what happened in Canada with the truckers.
Yes.
I mean, they froze their bank accounts.
Yeah.
Or people who donated to them.
Yeah. people who donated to them got their bank accounts frozen.
How insane.
Insane. And then that same party just won again. Good job, Canada.
Oh, my God. If they didn't have good bear hunting, I would never go there.
I do have to say, I offered to have that Pierre guy come on the podcast.
Really?
He didn't do it. Wouldn't do it. Thought it was too problematic. Or whatever. Jordan told me, I forget what he said, but they were telling him not to do it. Like his advisors were telling him not to do it. Hey, dumbass.
If they can't talk.
Okay. All right. Was that good advice, though? Was that smart advice, even? Don't go on Joe Rogan's podcast, Pierre Poilievre. You're asking for trouble. It would be problematic. What do you think, Nick?
I think two things that I see as a big reason not to go on it. One, Pierre would have to travel down to Texas, which is just a non-starter during a federal election campaign in Canada. Two, 80% of Joe Rogan's listeners are men. 56% of his listeners are young men between 18 and 34, or young adults between 18 and 34. Those are not the demographics that Pierre needed to flip during the campaign. It would have been an absolute waste of time. And I find myself completely agreeing with conservatives here that he should not have done that very, very definitively.
Okay, interesting. Cam, what do you think, Cam?
Well, what I find interesting, and later on in that thing, Mr. Rogan says he openly admits he knows nothing about Canadian politics, which he obviously showed by calling him that Pierre guy. So obviously not knowing anything about politics, he obviously wouldn't understand it, maybe wouldn't accept why it would be such a bad idea. The whole time, Mr. Poilievre was trying to push away this idea that he was mega light or mega-ish or whatever. And you couldn't have done a much more mega thing than go on Joe Rogan's podcast, and for all the reasons that Nick just laid out.
Well, he says, Joe Rogan says he'll interview anybody. That
doesn't mean everybody needs to accept. Like, honestly, to me, it's like anything else, right? You have to know who your audience, you have to know the risk going in, right?
Yeah.
You treat that as with any other mainstream media. So again, I actually get the conservatives credit here. They recognized that this was not going to be, the juice was not going to be worth the squeeze here, and didn't put themselves in this position. Because can you imagine the clips that would have come out of that interview that would have been used by the Liberal War Room ad nauseum for the rest of that campaign? It would have been a gold mine. And it wouldn't have been, and the only thing that they would have done wrong would have been putting themselves in that seat to do it. So yeah, they made the right call. And if Mr. Rogan does understand it, well, then he doesn't understand Canadian politics, which amazingly he admitted.
Okay, we only have a minute left. Let me ask you this. Should the New Democrats be granted official party status with only 7 seats? Yes or no?
I'd like to say yes, but honestly, the party itself refused it for the bloc back in 2011, so it's hard to say yes.
It's hard to say yes. Okay. Nick?
No. For all the reasons that Cam just laid out. No.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. Thank you so much. Great to hear from both of you today. Wonderful discussion. We'll speak soon. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Yeah, that's Cam Holmstrom. He is a principal at Neepaway Strategies from the Kenora area originally. Nick McRoberts with Hill and Knowlton. So a Leaf fan. Nick says he's a Leaf fan. He'll be cheering for the Leafs tonight, and Cam Holmstrom will be cheering for his Winnipeg Jets, I would believe. I'm Rob Snow. Talkback is coming up next. We're going to talk about the cost of living. Coming up next. And what this new government could do to make our lives more affordable. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today's topic is the cost of living. Pocketbook issues. We're going to dig into pocketbook issues today. The Liberals won the election. The Conservatives lost. The Liberals will be in charge, and it's going to be Prime Minister Carney for the foreseeable future. What can Prime Minister Mark Carney's government do to make your life more affordable? Think about that and give us a call at 1-833-668-2577. What can this government do to make your life more affordable and made lots of promises during the election campaign to make your life more affordable. What would you like to see in terms of action from the government? Look, the Trump story has been the big story all week. It was a big issue during the election campaign, may have ended up being the deciding issue in the election campaign. But now the meeting has happened. It's over between Carney and Trump, and it wasn't a disaster, but nothing has really changed. And the prime minister has said it's going to be a long process. Trump is still the president. There are still tariffs on Canada. And Trump said yesterday there's nothing Mark Carney can say, nothing Mark Carney can do that will make that change anytime soon. It's just the way it is, Trump said. So that issue can go on the back burner, I think, for now. The other big issue in the election campaign was affordability, the cost of living. And the fact that life for so many Canadians is a financial struggle. To borrow an old line, there's too much month left at the end of the money. And we're told Mark Carney's a smart guy. Nobody's really disputing that. AAA resume, PhD in economics from one of the finest universities in the world, all of this stuff. And he's running the show in Canada. So what can he do? What policies could his government put in place that would help you? That would make your life more affordable? 1-833-668-2577. He has already scrapped the consumer carbon tax. Okay, got rid of the carbon tax. Gas prices fell after that decision, although I notice they've been creeping a little higher lately. But that is, that's welcome relief for a lot of people, saving a little bit of money at the gas station. But the financial pressures that so many Canadians are facing, they are real. They are real. Millions and millions and millions of Canadians say they are feeling stressed about their financial situation. In a recent survey, a majority of those questions said, living paycheck to paycheck is the new reality in Canada. Living paycheck to paycheck is the new reality in Canada. 85% of Canadians, according to one survey, said living paycheck to paycheck is the new normal. More than half of Canadians say they are struggling to make ends meet. 8 out of 10 Canadians are saying they can't keep up with rising costs. 6 out of 10 Canadians say they're not putting any money into a savings account because they don't have any savings to put into a savings account. Half of Canadians using credit cards for large purchases instead of paying cash. And more than half say they would have to go into debt if they faced an unexpected expense like a car repair bill or a broken appliance. It is not a pretty picture. It is not a pretty picture. It's rather bleak. Actually, the financial strain on so many people, the anxiety that creates, the pressure on marriages and relationships. What can the government do? What can the government do? Can the government do anything? Is it a government problem, or is it a problem with us, our wants, our needs, our desires too extravagant? Is it more about our lifestyle? Prime Minister Carney says he's different from Justin Trudeau. He'll have a different approach to governing than Justin Trudeau did. Yesterday, during his meeting with Mr. Trump, Mr. Carney said he would have the same relentless focus that Trump does on the Canadian worker and the Canadian economy. But what, if anything, can the government do to make our lives more affordable? Let's kick this around for a couple of hours. Pocketbook issues. We'll see where the conversation goes. Phone lines are open right now. Call-in line is 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Save that number in your phone. Put us on speed dial. 1-833-668-2577. If you have never called before, just mention that to us. We will gladly make your call a priority. We love hearing from first-timers around here. It is the midweek edition of Talkback, and we are talking about money. We are talking about pocketbook issues today. We are talking about the cost of living, and we are asking what the government can do to make your life more affordable. I'm Rob Snow, Here with David Smith, midweek edition of Talkback. This is News Radio. What, if anything, can the government do to make your life more affordable? That's our question today. 1-833-668-2577. A couple of lines available for you today. Tobias is up first, calling from Calgary. Hello, Tobias. Good to hear from you. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Rob, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Oh, that's good. Good to hear. What do you think?
We heard both parties talk about building houses and new builds, and they're going to blow up, all the stops for all these new builders and everything like that.
Yeah.
What I would love to see is a regulatory commission or some kind of committee that can hold these builders somewhat accountable to the profits that they're making on these houses.
Okay.
Because how much money do you really need to make? Like, what's your profit margin to be a sustainable, investment like that? And then what's just overkill and completely blown out of proportion? Because, you see all these new builds going up in all these neighborhoods, but they're based upon what the market value of that house is in that area.
Right.
I mean, how can we make it more affordable? Well, that's one way, is to try and, limit how much money you actually make on that new build. Because it's one thing to have an existing build that's appreciated over time, regardless, like it has the trees, it has all the things, right? But
yes.
The other way is to, make this affordable for Canadians. So if you want to,
right.
I make $100,000 a year, and I can't even fathom to afford a bungalow house in this city. It's impossible.
Right. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 44.
44. Wow. Okay. All right. So you would suggest a cap on the profits that property developers can make when they sell a house to somebody?
Well, yeah, because there's no accountability for that, right? Like, they can take, like, they've given them all these breaks as far as taxes and things like that go, but that's just going right in their pockets. That's not actually going to us. That's only going to them.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. Okay. All right.
Just my thoughts on it anyway.
Yeah. Your thoughts. I mean, I guess if, in the interest of capitalism, I suppose the property developer should be able to sell the home for whatever the market will bear. If somebody will pay that price, and if they can't sell it for that price, they'll have to lower the price.
Exactly. But that's like they keep talking about flooding the market with all these houses, but everybody wants to buy a house right now, but nobody can because so they're all sitting on these down payments, and they're just like, well, I can't fathom a $3,000 mortgage payment. This is insane. Like, how do you make ends meet on a say you make $50,000 a year? That's impossible.
Right. But housing affordability would be the big issue. They have to do something about housing affordability. A very aggressive target from the Carney government. Some would say it's kind of pie in the sky. They want to build 500,000 homes every year. 500,000 homes would be double the record for new home construction in Canada. That double the most Canada's ever built before.
Well, if we stop giving away all our resources, I think that's definitely feasible. Like, I don't see why we can't. There's lots of guys looking for work out there, so.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir, for your call, Tobias. You've got us off to a good start here. Let's go to Brian up next. Brian, what do you think the government could do to make your life more affordable? Hi, Brian.
Yes, aside from the other callers who've been calling in, I do echo their exact same sentiments, like with the affordability, buying a house and all that other good stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like the one thing I would like to say is that all levels of government need to start cutting back on taxes, basically. All different kinds of taxes all around, and just using my own household example, one of the other problems we run into is also has to do with provincial policies. Because my spouse, like basically, I am the working spouse of someone who receives disability from social services here in Alberta, and my income right now is almost my net income per month is almost at the point right now where if I start making more money, either through my current employer or I get another job, the Alberta government starts clawing back my wife's disability payments. And the parameters are have already been very, very paltry to begin with, and they haven't changed at all since before the pandemic.
Okay.
And apparently the Alberta government is the only jurisdiction that if you start getting any monies from the feds for that kind of thing, because I know the feds were throwing around this $200 a month thing for people with disabilities and handicaps and whatnot. But the Alberta government has responded back by saying, well, it's like if the feds are going to dole out $200, we're going to claw back $200. So you can't get ahead.
Okay.
And
okay.
So for me, as a working spouse of someone on disability, there is no incentive by the Alberta government to give me an opportunity to make more money to allow our household to get ahead.
Right. So you would welcome some tax relief then on all kinds of taxes.
Tax relief, as well as the Alberta government, basically, and
clawbacks on social welfare payments.
Yeah, so I mean, as much as I'm a UCP voter, I'm a Danielle Smith supporter and whatnot, but this is one of the areas where the UCP government really needs to get things fixed. Because when you think about back in 2019, Jason Kenney basically made the boneheaded move of basically de-indexing disability payments from inflation, and it was one of the biggest backfires of all time because look how much inflation exploded over these last few years.
Okay, all right.
It's like so. I mean, the Alberta government really needs to start doing more for people that are vulnerable, like in vulnerable situations, like my spouse. So
all right,
I
sir.
mean, the Alberta government cannot expect me to be the eventually become the sole provider of my household. It's just not possible.
Thank you. I'm just writing down here some notes. Thank you. I'm keeping track of people's answers. Thank you for your call. Appreciate it.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Paying the bills, the cost of living, and what the new government can do to make your life more affordable. 1-833-668-2577 to get in line on Talkback today. Lee is up next in Kitchener. Hello, Lee.
Hey, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm good, Lee. Thanks for calling.
So, honestly, the thing that they could do is literally nothing.
Nothing. Okay.
The previous government has just spent so much money on things. The tax burden has just gotten ridiculous. And if they could repeal some of the laws that prevent development, especially out west, I think that would bring money in for the government to operate, and it would give good jobs to Canadians. So repealing some legislation maybe, and just no more programs. To be honest, I was super frustrated to hear that they were going to, the first thing he talked about was expanding the dental program. It's like an unnecessary program in a time of incredible deficit budgets. And the first thing he wants to do is spend even more money. It's ridiculous.
Okay. Well, they say it's helping a lot of people. You get to the dentist for the first time in years, or maybe the first time ever for a lot of people.
Okay, but there's only so much things that we can do as homeowners and as taxpayers. I have a good job, but I don't want to give anymore.
I see. Okay. So cut the size of government, reduce government spending.
Reduce government spending.
Limit the growth of government programs. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's at record levels, and it's not even like it's been incremental. It's been a step change, and it needs to go back to something that's more reasonable.
Okay. Thank you for your call today. I mean, the Liberals certainly, they made a big deal about a Trump during the election campaign, but they also made a lot of promises during the election campaign about the cost of living. Mark Carney would say, I've already axed the tax. And I know some of you will say, well, the legislation is still on the books. The carbon tax is still there. It's just been set to zero, but it's zero for now. And the Liberals did that. We'll see what happens with the carbon tax and industrial carbon taxes. But when that happened, in most places where people were paying that carbon tax, gas prices fell about 20 cents a liter or so. So that's a little break. Mark Carney is also promising to cut income taxes. He calls it a middle-class tax cut. The actual promise is a reduction of the marginal rate of the lowest tax bracket, 1 percentage point. The Liberals say that will save a two-income family up to $825 a year, up to $825 a year. The language is always important in these announcements. But the Liberals say 22 million Canadians will be able to take advantage of that. And another big savings promise was on housing and eliminating the GST on the sale of all homes up to $1 million for first-time home buyers only. And the government estimates that would save somebody, $50,000 on $1 million home. If you're in the market for $1 million home and not $500 away from going broke. So make of that what you will. Tracy in Kitchener is up next. Hello, Tracy.
Good afternoon, Rob. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, Tracy. Hi there.
So I have to agree with most of your callers. The government needs to stop taxing us at the rate they tax us. But what I'd like you to look at, and you would need to probably Google this unless you're familiar with it, it's something called the home equity tax. It's currently
we've talked a lot about that. Yeah.
It's not on the books. But that in itself and that concept of taxing people on something that has developed equity over time is the problem with the Liberal government. That tax would make mortgages unaffordable for people. So I think that tax in general definitely needs to come down. But I think that as Canadians, we need to be very wary of things like the home equity tax.
A home equity tax. I mean, they say they're not going to do it. I would advise them not to do it. There would be people with pitchforks in Ottawa. I think it would put the Freedom Convoy to shame if there was a tax on the equity of a primary residence, not an investment property. They say they're not going to do it, but they have studied it in the past. They've spent about $500,000 studying in the past, which leads some people to think, well, if you're not going to do it, then why are you spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to actually study it? And there is an organization there, Generation Squeeze, headed up by a professor, very left-wing activist professor out of the West Coast, who is advocating for this, that this is a windfall, an unearned windfall for people who have built up a lot of equity over time, and that is money that would be better spent making life more affordable, making improvements to social welfare programs, these sorts of things.
Well, I certainly wouldn't have voted for that, and I certainly wouldn't agree with that. Yeah. But hopefully it's something we don't.
Well, what do you think of the promise is, and they want to, I think the Liberals are going to try and get this done when Parliament is back before the summer break. They're going to pass this income tax cut that they say would save a two-income family $825 a year, up to $825 a year. What do you think about something like that? Would that help you, do you think?
That might help me. I'm not a double-income family, but $800 a year doesn't come close to the amount of debt that many people are carrying. Many people are carrying, and they're not carrying debt to go on holidays. They're not carrying debt to, be frivolous spenders. They're carrying debt to buy groceries, to pay bills, to pay tax on tax, to buy cars, to buy gas, to go to work, things like that. So I appreciate you taking my call.
I appreciate you calling. Thank you. And we will stop here. It is Talkback as we talk about the cost of living and measures the government could take to make your life more affordable. David in Halifax. Thanks for calling, David. You're on the air. Good to hear from you.
How are you doing this afternoon?
Good, David. Thank you for calling.
Well, there's a couple things that I just have for Carney and any government, actually, is that the interprovincial barriers really have to come down. Let's get rid of that off the table. It's great. You're going to have
it'll be done by Canada Day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. But there's going to be some pushback.
Yes.
But one of the big areas that I see, and for some reason, I believe during the election, Carney even raised it and mentioned that supply chain management is off the table. It's not negotiable.
Supply management, yes.
Yes,
supply management in agriculture.
To me, excuse me?
In agriculture, you're talking about
absolutely, particularly
milk,
dairy, right?
Chicken, eggs,
That's
yes.
the primary one. Yes. The chicken and eggs are actually a little bit on their own, but they're more vertical. But the milk, and take milk dairy as a prime example. Last year alone, we threw out, estimated, up to 1 billion liters of milk. 1 billion.
Yes.
Because it couldn't be used in the country.
Okay.
We are double, if not higher, that of the U.S. in prices on milk alone. So why are we protecting, in this case, about 8,000, I think it was said last year, 8,000 voters? 1%
Yeah, it's about
of our
8,800
GDP
dairy farms.
dairy.
8,800 dairy farms in the country. Yeah.
Exactly. And we're worried about them. Meanwhile, we're throwing out 1 billion liters of milk. That doesn't make sense at all. And so if we put supply chain, because I know there's one thing that Trump did emphasize, and I remember hearing that. He says, and they're going to charge us, and that was part of the current Kumas deal, 200 and some odd % tariff on our milk to go into the U.S., into Canada. Mind you, we don't even need it, so they never even get to the quota to hit the 200 and some odd %. So the thing is that why do we have such a high price in Canada just on milk, which is a necessity for
it's a
everybody
staple
across the country?
for sure. It's a staple,
right?
Yeah, for a lot of people, it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I'm just saying,
But
right
it's
there
not
that
just Carney,
you're
sir. I
worried
will
about-
say it's not just Mark Carney. During the election campaign, I mean, this was a topic during one of the debates, especially the French language debate, because these 8,800 dairy farmers, most of them are in Quebec, and they can influence the outcome of ridings in Quebec. Very politically powerful lobby group in Ottawa, spend a lot of money on lobbyists.
Really, for 8,000 votes?
Yeah. Politically important, though.
That's what I'm
politically
saying.
important. I mean, if you think back when Andrew Scheer was running against Maxime Bernier for the leadership of the Conservative Party, and it was this close.
Yes,
It was like it came down to Andrew Scheer won by the hair of his chinny chin. It was his support of supply management that probably tipped it in his favor, because Maxime Bernier is opposed to supply management, and as a result, Andrew Scheer became the leader.
So it's going to be political. Yet here's one thing that could be done by the government.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
For everybody in the country. I just want to want to raise that because it was their topic today. And
we pay more for these. We pay more for these grocery items. Milk, all the dairy products.
Thing too is that that's the other thing the government can do. And you talk about taxes, is that you have a young family, so you go grocery shopping. You want to buy them a muffin, or you want to buy them something for your kids just to take to school for lunch. Do you realize, and a lot of people don't realize, that if you buy 4, you get taxed. If you buy 6, there's no tax.
That's right.
Why don't you just eliminate food?
Because if you buy 6, it's considered a grocery item, right? And there's no GST on groceries. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Very interesting. Supply management. That's a good one. That's a good suggestion. The savings would be clear, I think. Clinton in Kitchener. Thanks for calling, Clinton. You're up next.
How's it going, Rob?
I'm fine. Thanks for calling. What do you think? What could the government do to make life more affordable for people?
Well, I'm actually in agreement with a lot of what's been said so far, but I too am one of those people that agree that there should be some sort of price fixing when it comes to the grocery stores.
Okay.
Like, to give an example, on the weekend I ran out of coffee late Saturday evening, and I needed it for Sunday morning. So I ran over to the closest grocery store by my place, which would have been a Zehrs. And for people that don't know Zehrs, it's under the Loblaws umbrella.
Okay.
So the cheapest can of coffee I could get, which was Maxwell House, was $18 for under Zehrs. But yet, if I drive 5 minutes down the road to Walmart Superstore, I can get it for $11.99. So I can't really tell me that they're not making oodles of money on that.
But isn't that proof that you don't need to cap prices at the grocery store? You just need to shop around to find a bargain.
I see the point, but then it also brings the fact, like, why do they need to charge that much money and someone else can charge so much cheaper? Why can't there be a little bit more closer competition rather than one price is through the roof and the other one's so low?
Okay.
Because where one, if I need a particular item from one particular grocery store, but then I need another item from another grocery store because that one that they don't sell the same product or something, and yet I'd rather shop around where I can, but I almost don't trust whether or not
okay
price gouging,
because this is something the New Democrats were running on. They wanted to cap prices at the grocery store. I just wonder,
not
how
even,
feasible
not even
is
just
that?
on that. Not even just on that. But why don't they put in like a policy for gasoline and say, okay, this is the fixed price. This is what gas is going to be charged at across the nation or per province.
Okay.
And then the gas companies have to submit a request on a monthly basis. Then they can only raise gas on a monthly basis. Because I don't see why.
Well, they kind of do that in Nova Scotia right now. They set the price once a week.
So is that more of a provincial issue then? Like that has to come down to Doug.
Well, they have a provincial regulator that says you can sell it for this much, between this much and this much. But it doesn't necessarily save people any money in Halifax on the price of a liter of gasoline. Sometimes
no, it doesn't, right? So still, I don't know why they can't lower it with the price of oil the way it is. That's
like in Kitchener today, because I keep track of this every day. I look up the gas prices every day on where our radio show is. In Kitchener today, the average price for gasoline is $133.9. In Halifax, where they set a government regulator sets the price once a week, it's $139. They're paying 6 cents more a liter. So it doesn't necessarily save you any money. And if you go, say you went to Halifax Gas Buddy website, because the regulator is setting the price, almost every gas station is the same price. It's hard to find a bargain on a liter of gas.
And I get that, but then why? Okay, so last night gas drops to $1.19 in the Kitchener area, but then this morning it goes back up to $1.36. They're still making money on $1.19. You can't say that they what are they? Is it on sale? The gas doesn't go on sale.
I don't know.
So why can't they fix the price at $1.19 across the board?
I don't know. Do you want the government setting all the prices? Like, what does that sound like? The government setting all the prices. What does that sound like?
Yeah, I know it sounds more like
the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union.
I get how it sounds. I almost want like a little bit somewhere in the middle.
Okay. Right? Okay. Somewhere in the middle. All right. Interesting. Thank you. Bye-bye. Got to run here. It's Talkback on News Radio. Mike in Dartmouth. Not a lot of time. Just about 2 minutes, Mike. Go ahead. What's your opinion?
Won't take me long at all, buddy. All they need to do, there's a ton of seniors in this country that are living in sub-poverty. Raise the old age pension.
Okay.
You want a way to come up with the money, suspend the foreign aid for at least 3 or 4 years, and there's a whole bunch of money for you. I mean, we're not even looking after our own people in this country, so, why are we giving it away? The taxpayers' money, we're not getting the services we deserve, but just focusing on my particular thing is, my situation. Old age CPP is absolutely a pathetic $1,300 a month. And I got a top up of $300 for a supplement. $1,600 a month to live in this country at this time. It's, the politicians aren't listening to at least there's a lot of baby boomers still alive, folks.
Of course.
And we might be for a while yet.
Yes.
But it's
so
hard
you
to
would
live
say,
on that, Rob.
you have the CPP, then you have old age security, and then you have the GIS, the guaranteed income supplement, which is supposed to go to people like you who are barely making ends meet. So your GIS is about 300 or so? Is that right?
It took me from 1,300 up to 1,600 a month.
Okay. You'd like to see a raise in that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That doesn't really put you in a better situation. $300 today isn't I'm sitting here in front of Sobeys about to go into the store, and I looked up my bank account before I walked in there, and it's not a big number.
Okay.
Anyway, right. Rob, you have a good day, buddy.
You too,
and,
Mike. Thank you.
To talk to you.
Yeah, always good to talk to you, Mike. Best of luck at the grocery store. We will be back right after the news.
It's time to talk back
on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
We're talking about pocketbook issues today and the cost of living and what government can do to make your life more affordable. Trump was a big issue during the election campaign, but so was the cost of living. It was an even bigger issue identified by many voters during polling done during the election campaign. We want to key in on cost of living issues today and gather your suggestions. Welcome to hour number 2. Let's go to Jonathan in Calgary. Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, Rob. Good morning, Rob.
Good to hear from you again, Jonathan. Thank you for calling. What do you think could be done?
You know what, Rob? I'm a first-generation immigrant, and my views, based on my 20 years experience of living here in Canada, is to me, Canada is a beautiful country because it has a mixed market economy. The element that incorporates the elements of both socialism and capitalism. And the beauty about it is like the government controls like the universal health care, public educations, welfare programs for both any welfare programs for seniors and for those people who are in need and who are those people who cannot compete in the workplace or the people that need help.
Yes.
And also on the other side is the capitalist side of Canada is
right.
We enjoy it, but the problem is the way I look at it in my years in Canada is it feels to me like the hard work or working hard attitude in the workforce is like it's like a little bit punished because you've been paying so much taxes and even overtimes it's taxed to the roof, and it's like it's not incentivized or encouraged. It's like you I don't know if it happens to other people, but this is only my opinion and my experience.
Yes.
Like
sure,
hard work should be encouraged or rewarded.
Yes,
and also the economy, it should be the productivity of the country should be given priority. Like it should be increased because that's where our economy depends on our productivity.
And how is that not happening now? How is that not happening now? Is it because if somebody works overtime, the overtime pay is taxed too much? If somebody works hard, gets a raise, gets a promotion, suddenly they find themselves in a new tax bracket. They're paying more tax. They get their pay stub on payday, and they look at it and it's like, wow, I got a raise, but I'm really not much better off. Things like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes?
Exactly.
Okay.
Like, for example,
Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then the answer to this, to improve our lives, is it's basically personal finance and the economy of the country. It's about our capacity to buy things, our capacity to afford things. And without those things in place, it's just more on control or something like that. We will not thrive because we cannot dictate or control the prices of the goods and services that we enjoy or want. We should be capable of buying those things or paying those things that we need.
Okay.
And
all right. All right, Jonathan, I'm going to have to wrap up our conversation there. Some great points to get us started here in hour number 2 of Talkback, but I do have to move along. The phone lines are starting to jam up here at 1-833-668-2577. Let's go to Matthew on the line today, also from Alberta. Hi, Matthew. Hello, Matthew. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. I hear.
Yeah, I hear you. Great. Thank you.
I was just going to say that it's taxes and regulations on everything that's bringing the price up of everything. Because nothing seems to follow anything else, right? Like you look at the historic price of wheat the last number of years and then look at the price of bread. There's not like a correlation there.
Okay.
Same Same as you see at the price of oil. The price of oil drops down and gas is still up. It doesn't follow, right? And then that goes to meat too, because meat follows a little closer, but the price the farmer's getting isn't as much as you're paying in the grocery store ever. Like, it's not even close.
Oh, the price
and
of
the
beef
regulation
is
part
crazy.
of that would be that those big abattoirs they can have all these regulations and apply to them, but any kind of competition, it's harder for a entrepreneur to keep up with all that stuff, right?
Okay. So what would be an example of a tax or a regulation that you think could be unwound that could make it easier for businesses to no, I can't follow them all. No.
Like, it's a layer and a layer and a layer and a layer, and who knows what started or what the solution would be to it. But to go back and look at all of it and knock out, they need the taxes for all of the overspending too. So I don't know that there's a solution to it, but all that stuff could be revisited and looked at, like third party or whatever, and then see what could be eliminated or reduced to.
Yeah, governments love to do that. They love to have, they love to strike panels on, red tape reduction panels and everything like this.
Yeah,
Usually when government doesn't,
but
that's a great, that's a classic scheme from government. When government doesn't know what to do, it strikes a panel because then it could just say, well, Mr. Snow, I'm glad you asked me about that. And we have a panel looking into that right now. And we look forward to that panel's recommendations sometime next year. So ask me again next year.
Point at inflation and shit, right? Oh,
right.
Sorry.
Okay. That's okay, Matthew. I'm out of time anyway, but I will have to end our conversation there. Thank you so much. Just watch the language, please. We'll be right back. It's Talkback, hour number 2. What could the government do to make life more affordable, to address the cost of living issues faced by so many Canadians? To Halifax, Nova Scotia. Chris up next. Hi, Chris.
Good afternoon, Rob.
Yeah. Hi, Chris. What would you say?
I guess the easy answer is lower taxes. But that's not so easy, given the fact that you've got a bureaucracy that's so bloated right now with high-paid government workers that, in my opinion, do not produce the way they should, that if we cut taxes, we can't afford to run the government. So I guess you've got to start, instead of starting with cutting taxes, which is important, look at where your expenditures are. We've got too much bureaucracy. I mean, Trudeau in 10 years increased it by 43% federally. I mean, that's ridiculous. We've got it on every level, from its municipal here in Halifax, the Nova Scotia provincial government, and then the federal government. They're all bloated and highly overpaid, in my opinion, for what they produce. So that will be a way to start. Another thing, small cut, would be defund the CBC. Cut out foreign aid to countries that you can't for sure know where this money's going. Because I'd be willing to bet that the vast, vast majority of our foreign aid goes into dictators and their families' pockets and does not get to the actual citizens of the country that need help. If we could guarantee that they got it when they needed it, or the people that needed it actually got it, that would be different. But I'd say cut out your foreign aid to a great degree as well. Get rid of the industrial carbon tax completely, not just the smoke and mirrors about charging zero cents on the liter of whatever for carbon tax on gasoline.
Okay.
Get rid of the thing altogether. Get rid of your provincial trade barriers. I know they've talked about that. Supply management's another one. Someone mentioned that earlier as well. Great idea.
Yes.
Build your pipelines. Allow us to do business. Allow Alberta to do the business that they're capable of doing. Not hamstring the country because you don't want to pump fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are going to be here for the next 50 or 100 years, for God's sake. They're not going anywhere fast. We don't need national pharmacare. Every province has provincial pharmacare, and it works well. At least here in Nova Scotia, it works well. Dental care is something a little different. They'd have to look at that a little more carefully. I don't think we need it for higher income people, but you had a caller on Mike saying about get more GIS and OAS and so on. Well, I agree with them. Seniors have been grossly overlooked. Take on what Pierre Poilievre had suggested he wanted to do by allowing seniors to make more money if they choose to work without having to pay the tax on it. That would help out.
Yeah,
but maybe increase your OAS payments to low-income seniors and cut it out completely to seniors that are making over $100,000 or more a year.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah.
I have a sister that's making $100 and something thousand a year. She's retired. She's 80 odd years old and retired. She's complaining she gets all of her OAS clawed back. Well, they start clawback at $92,000 or $96,000. Well, I think a senior here in Nova Scotia, at least, making $90,000 or $92,000 would gladly be able to give up their OAS and not suffer too much for it.
Okay, a very thorough list there, Chris. You've given it some thought. I appreciate that. Back to Calgary we go. First-time caller Eric is on the line. Thank you for calling, Eric. You're up next. Hi there.
Hello, Rob. Good afternoon. It's my
good to hear from you. Yeah. What do you think?
Worried about the bracket of the salary base tax for each and every one of us. With regards to example, if you reach 50,000, there's an average tax for it. And the more you work hard for it, and especially I'm saying just for example, the nurse, they study for it, they work for it, and the tax for their brackets it's much more I'm not saying only on the nurse, but basically if you reach more than 50 or 60,000 grand, the average, let's say example the 70,000 salary, the tax would be more. So
sure. Yeah, it's called a progressive tax. Yeah.
Because the effort of each and every one of us, if they reach let's say $30 per hour or $40 per hour, the tax would be different from the basic low income earner, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it makes sense if they have to able to check the balance of what they could able to adjust on the salary bracket. Also, if you do overtime, sometimes, if you do overtime, the tax is so high, so the people were discouraged of getting working overtime instead of profit.
Yes.
The profit that they have to earn, it will goes to the government, right?
Sure.
More tax will be cut if you work overtime.
Right.
So,
yeah. But we have this, we have a what they call progressive tax system in Canada, whereby the more you earn, the more you pay. I guess politically it would be a very tough sell to say, well, the more you earn, the less you pay. I don't know.
But
if a lot of people are going to go for that,
to minimize or to reduce.
Right, but you're kind of like a caller before that, and you've seen this before where people are working a lot of overtime. They get taxed so much on their overtime, they feel like, what is the incentive of working so much overtime? Or they work really hard in a job and they advance in their job and they're rewarded in their career and they get a raise in salary. And then they get their pay stub and it's like, wow, I'm making whatever I'm making, like an extra $30 or something because I'm in a new tax bracket now. And people are like, why did I? And some people, I know this has happened because I work with a lot of young people and you see the progress in their careers where they are rewarded. They get a full-time job and salary and benefits and finally all grown up, but then they lose a lot of the other benefits that came with not making a lot of money. They lose a lot of the GST checks and other rebates and stuff like that, right?
Actually, the more you get, the more you get money, or the more you work hard,
right?
The more you pay tax.
You feel it's not rewarded.
It's not worth it.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. Okay, Eric. Thank you. I got to run. I'm a little bit over time here, but I appreciate what you're saying. You're not the first person who has said this today. Hard work has to be rewarded more. Tyler in Calgary. Hi, Tyler.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, my pleasure, Tyler. Good to hear from you today.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about some of the feedback that the people are calling in with about having the government be more involved and putting caps on things like home builders and groceries and so on, because that doesn't encourage business. And I feel like that's one of our challenges here in this country, is that there's a lack of encouragement for other businesses to come in. And I believe there was a year or so ago, there was talks about bringing in grocers from other parts of the world to try and compete with some of the grocers that we have here. And to my understanding, they were like, I'm not touching this. I'm not getting involved in this. And so maybe if we do things to encourage more of a competitive market, like obviously there's some other things that come into play. I totally agree. Our bureaucracy is bloated, so on and so forth. But I feel like there's a lack of competitiveness and it's not encouraged to be competitive. It's almost like they want to have people be, I don't want to go down this road, but more reliant on some of those federal checks, just the federal government in general. And I also wonder if our GDP and the lack of growth over the last 10 years has played a role on this too. Like I'm totally, as I get older, I realize how little I know. Maybe I'm out to lunch with some of this.
No.
Do you have thoughts?
Well, specifically on, let's just take, for example, competition in the grocery store sector, since a few people have brought that up today. And this idea, and again, it was a pitch from the New Democrats. I mean, not just during the election campaign, but for years. Well, let's cap prices at the grocery store and we'll identify, various products at the grocery store that we deem to be essential, essential food items, female hygiene products, diapers, these kinds of things. And we'll cap the price that a grocery store can charge. And another one of their ideas was, well, we're going to have an excess profits tax. And if a grocery store chain makes too much profit, well, we're going to tax whatever we deem to be excessive, and we'll pour that into social programs. At the same time, you had the cabinet minister in Ottawa, Champagne, who was the industry minister. He's on the phone, and he's calling European grocery store chains and American grocery store chains. He's calling Albertsons and whatever. Hey, why don't you come and open up grocery stores in Canada? And what's their response? Well, not if we're going to have the government cap grocery prices. Like, we're not going to open grocery stores in Canada. And not if you're going to have an excessive profits tax. And if we make too much money, what are you going to do? You're going to haul us to Ottawa and grill us about how greedy we are. These kind of policies are totally counterproductive to the kind of competition that might actually lower grocery prices and in turn make life more affordable. I think it's a great point that you make. We'll be right back after the news on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So we've been talking about affordability today and the cost of living with the new government coming into power in Ottawa, and what that government could do to make your life more affordable, because it is tough out there for a lot of people. I was reading the results of a survey today from the insolvency firm Harris and Partners. I mean, it highlighted just how stressed out some people are about their finances these days. This firm, Harris and Partners, hired another firm, a polling firm, did a survey. 70% said, my financial situation is causing me anxiety. I mean, you think about that. 10 people go to a restaurant, 7 are worried about paying the bill. 40% said their household financial situation is causing a strain on their personal relationships. Half said they have had to borrow money at some point in the last 2 years to pay for everyday essentials. So, buying groceries, paying a utility bill, buying the kids some winter clothes. That went on a credit card instead of paying cash. Half the people who took this survey said they've had to do that in the last 2 years. And 1/4 of people said if they needed to come up with $500 for an emergency expense, they couldn't do it. They don't have $500. I mean, that's how close a lot of people are to the edge financially right now. One unexpected life event, and it is like a whole world of hurt for a lot of people. But what can the government do? Can the government even do anything? Would be another question. Brian in Calgary, thanks for waiting, Brian. If you're still with us, Brian, you're on the air.
Taking my call, Rob. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so I don't think any government can handle money any better than I can. In fact, I don't believe they can handle it as well as I can. So all these programs, they want more money for this, more money for that. Like I say, whether it's dental care or prescription care or, I would much rather see them just say, hey, we're going to give you a tax cut and you're going to keep more of your own money and spend it the way that you want to, as opposed to have all these programs. I thought Tyler did a really good job of speaking when he turned around and mentioned that, all these programs we can't afford. We can't keep affording to open up the purse when there's nothing in the bottom of the purse,
Okay.
It's a matter of economics. You can only spend what you make, and we've been overspending. The only thing I would say is, if you're talking about programs, is I would cancel the prescription care and the dental care, and I would take that money and I'd put it into healthcare, because as our population ages, we're certainly not keeping up with the healthcare costs, and we won't be able to as our generation gets older and older and older. So that's one area that you can see that.
Well, I think the other side, the progressive side, would say, well, dental care and pharmacare is an extension of healthcare.
Well,
that
I'm sure
healthcare.
it is. The question is would you rather be able to have a knee operation and get it done on a timely basis, or would you rather have your teeth checked or get in Alberta?
Well, I guess maybe it all depends on what's a person's need at the time. Do they need a new knee or do they need a root canal?
Well, exactly. And you know what? If we were taxed less and we were left more money on our paychecks, then we could make that decision ourselves.
Right. Okay. Good points all around. Thank you. Dan Veer up next. Sorry for making you wait there, Dan Veer. You kind of got lost in the mix today. Hi, Dan Veer.
Hey, hi, Rob.
Hi. Good to hear from you.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure.
The government, I think, can do a lot of things. So, we as people, we elect government, right? So government needs to lobby for us. So, but what has been happening is a lot of lobbyists, they twist the policies to their own benefit, right? But when we talk about capping the price, then they talk about why would government interfere? But why do they want the government to interfere firsthand for their own benefit? Why can't they just do business as in let the market decide? But at that point, they'll have the government interfere for their own good, right? Right now, the tariffs, if we do not put any tariffs on our side, that'll reduce the cost, right, for us. And then the Bank of Canada, they should not, they're reducing the interest rate, but the banks are not reducing the interest rate on mortgage. So the profit is only going to the banks. So it is not even helping. Okay. So that is more money supply. That is a big reason for the prices to stay where they are. They always give excuse of house prices will fall. They actually need to fall, right? I own a house. Whether my house goes up to $2 million or goes down to $200,000, I still get the same benefits, same enjoyment from that house. It doesn't matter what the price is. So, even if it is going down a little bit, I think it should not make any difference. It's actually going to stabilize the market. Get the actual I would like to use the term black market, right? So the people who hoard and then they artificially increase the price. That's what was happening. There are a lot of venture funds owning single family homes. We need to dig that out. So why would we have venture funds investing in houses, right?
Right.
Like,
well, obviously they're doing it they're viewing it as a financial asset.
Yeah, but
right?
it is not. It is a necessity if you look at it.
Okay.
Right.
Again, so you think that should be ended? That big institutional investors should not be allowed to buy homes, to buy a lot of homes.
Yeah, they should not be. Like, this
Okay,
is a
all right,
single-family home. It should be available only for single family.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Thank you, Dan Bear. Gotta run.
Yeah,
Thank you. We'll be right back in the home stretch here of the Wednesday Talkback. Glenn in Calgary. Hello, Glenn.
Hello.
Hi, Glenn.
I've talked to you before about this particular item.
Okay.
How much do you pay in GST percentage?
GST 5%. Yeah.
No. Of your purchase, probably 50% or more of it is GST. It is a layered tax.
Okay.
If it's made in Canada, every item that goes into it has been taxed with GST. If it's being transported, GST.
Okay.
Then when it goes through the various steps to get to the retailer, there's usually 3 steps. GST. By the time it reaches us, the public,
okay,
it has multiplied itself. So an item that costs $1 to make is selling for over $10.
Okay, I'm
mostly
not sure about that. Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Get any mathematician out there to follow the chain. I'm not good at doing that.
Well, again, grown men cry when I do math, so I would have to have a mathematician do that, right? So what do you do? Do you just get rid of the GST? Scrap the GST?
All they have to do to free up the economy is simply cancel the GST.
Okay.
It'll take a long time to settle down because people don't in the wholesale and manufacturing won't want to put down their prices, but they'll be forced to by the consumer. But that's all they got to do. But of course, if they do that, they lose about 75% of their income.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact figure that the GST brings into the government every year, but I suspect it is a substantial sum. Well, here we go. The goods and services tax generated $22 billion in revenue in 2024. So a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
And that came out of our pockets.
Of course. Yeah.
And they do it sneaky, so we don't know we're paying so much tax.
Okay. But one of your recommendations would be get rid of the GST. Cancel the GST.
I don't think it'd be realistic because it'd bankrupt the...
Right. Okay.
But if they cut it in half, prices would go way down, and they'd still keep half of that tax to spend.
Okay. Yeah, it was 11% of all government revenues. 23,
I'm
24
sure it's more than that.
fiscal year.
I think they're pledging on that.
Okay. All right. Scrap the GST. I remember when Sean Chrétien promised to do that. It never came to pass. It was 7%. The Harper government cut it first to 6 and then to 5. You would like to see it at 0. And I'm sure a lot of people would.
You aren't old enough to remember, when it came out, it was a temporary tax to pay for. I think it was the Olympic Games.
No, not the GST, sir. The GST replaced the manufacturer's tax, which was seen as an impediment to growing the manufacturing sector in Canada. So they replaced that with the consumption tax.
It was for 5 years.
It was the Mulroney government that brought in the GST, and it was very hated. He had to stack the Senate to do it. You may recall. Okay, Glenn, thank you for your call on the GST. Little history lesson there. John in Waterloo up next. Hi, John.
Yeah. Hi, Rob.
Hi, John.
This is John. Thank you for accepting my call.
My
I would
pleasure.
like to talk about the proposal that the Poliev had about the capital gains except tax.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes.
This, my opinion is that with this kind of exception, if we invest money to Canada, the housing prices might go down quite a bit.
Okay.
For example, let's say in Vancouver, a relative of mine has, let's say, 15 houses. He's in a retirement stage now, and he wants to sell, but he doesn't want to sell the houses because he has to pay lots of taxes.
Okay.
Without these taxes, he can sell them and put them in, let's say, in a stock market or in mutual funds or something else.
Right. And not pay any tax as long as it was invested into a Canadian asset, right? A Canadian.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So this way, like without if we don't have to pay this amount of taxes, instead of $1 million, we can sell it for $800,000,
right?
Or $700,000 because we can save from taxes. That's an idea. I really like the from Polyev.
You like that idea? Okay.
But
all right. Thank you, John.
What I want to say. Thank you very much.
And you have said it. You've said it well, sir. Thank you. We'll be right back. It's Talkback. I'm Rob Snow, and this is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
With David Smith winding things down here for the Wednesday edition of Talkback. Thank you so much for all of your calls today, all of your thoughts. I mean, very, very popular opinions. And a lot of it has to do with government spending and taxes, people craving tax relief, which was part of the Liberal platform. I noticed money.ca today, David, the financial news website, is out with a new report. I guess the title kind of says it all on this topic of affordability, cost of living. Canada's rising debt crisis is the title of the report. Canada's rising debt crisis. Delinquency rates falling behind on paying the monthly bills. Those rates were up almost 20% in the last year, Dave.
Yeah, see, that's concerning. That's a concerning metric.
Like, it's still a fairly small percentage. Like, it's 1.43%. Okay? So there's resilience there. But the fact that it's up 20% in a year, the authors of this report say that is a sign that a lot of people are feeling the pinch. They call it a red flag. It's a red flag is how they describe it. Keep an eye on that. And then they go through a whole series. Like, this is what financial stress terms that people are searching on the internet, like what people are Googling. People doing Google searches for payday loans, Dave. Like those short-term, like super crazy high interest rate loans to get people through to the next payday. Up Google searches for payday loans in Canada up 27% in a year.
Yeah, that says a lot.
That's scary. How much debt are people carrying these days? And we're talking about non-mortgage debt. So, you've got your mortgage and all the other stuff. The average is about 21 grand.
Yeah.
21 grand. That's the average. So for some, it would be less, but for some, it'd be more. I suspect for others, probably be a lot more. But on average, nationwide, it's about $21,000 in non-mortgage debt. $24,000 though in Calgary. Halifax is right around the average, $20,700, and it's about 20 grand in Southern Ontario. The highest, though, Fort McMurray, $37,000. I'm not sure why that is, but that was the highest personal debt load of any of the cities that were in this report. But all of these other search terms related to financial stress, searches related to consumer proposals. You go into the firm, you say, look, I'm drowning in debt. I have to come up with some kind of deal with my creditors. Those are up 3%. Searches for debt relief, up 5%. Searches for garnishment. Like, things are tough when they're garnishing your wages, Dave. Searches for that, up 17% in a year. So, all of it suggests a lot of people are worried. They're worried about where they are financially right now. The rising cost of living is taking a toll. It is taking a toll on people. And at the same time, a report from TransUnion says almost half of Canadians say they were worse off financially than they thought they would be at the end of last year. 8 out of 10 cited inflation as their top financial concern and how it's raising prices for everyday essentials, with the two being groceries and fuel. And 6 out of 10 are not expecting any kind of wage increase. So what are they doing? Cutting back. They're cutting back on discretionary spending, eating out, traveling. They're canceling subscriptions. I've got to get on that bandwagon, canceling subscriptions. None of it is a sign of a healthy consumer-driven economy. So many tapped out, it seems. That is the state of things. That is the financial reality for many, many Canadians that Mark Carney is inheriting from Justin Trudeau. Thank you today for sharing your thoughts on what he should do about it. Back tomorrow with a new topic and more of your calls on Talkback on News Radio.